They called him Zaltor the Blackened, not because of his armor, but because of what war had burned out of him. His name echoed across fringe sectors as the soldier who never flinched, who had survived the Othari rebellions, the Velen gas massacre, and the siege of Viator Prime. His eyes no longer blinked in the face of brutality. And when he spoke, soldiers listened. Or at least, they used to. Now, seated in a dimly lit hall beneath the banners of the Galactic Empire, Zaltor addressed a room filled with bureaucrats and admirals too young to know the taste of ash in their mouths. Before them flickered images of Earth, a primitive blue planet in the Orion Spur. The initial scouting reports displayed a species still reliant on combustion-based engines, kinetic projectile weapons, and carbon-based infrastructure. They laugh. Their confidence unshakable. Their arrogance terminal. They are not what they appear, Zaltor said, voice dry and level. You see technology. I see behavior. You see stone cities. I see tactical discipline. You call them fragmented. I call them forged. Counselor Bellaris waved a jeweled hand. Veteran, your experience is valued. But you speak of chaos as strength. Their entire planet is divided by language, faith, tribalism. They kill one another over skin tone. And you claim they are dangerous. Zaltor's expression didn't change. Because they kill one another over skin tone. Because they invented peace only after knowing the depths of war. Look again. Every century, conflict. Each war more efficient. Each tool more precise. They build weapons faster than they build cities. High Admiral Terek scoffed. We've subdued more advanced civilizations. The Rukari had pulse fusion arsenals. Earth has drones. Drones they pilot with handheld consoles. Children learn strategic targeting before they learn arithmetic, Zaltor replied coldly. He stood, ignoring the discomfort in his old joints, and gestured toward the floating display. Earth rotated slowly, its surface streaked with scars. Deserts born from war, cities rebuilt atop rubble, borders redrawn more times than any other planet in recorded imperial history. Yet the lights stayed on. The species endured. Even flourished. They adapt. It's not their weapons. It's the fact they make war a crucible. They evolve during pressure. Like a metal that strengthens when struck. The more conflict they face, the more dangerous they become. A pause. One aide reached for note. Another whispered nervously. Someone chuckled, but it didn't carry. I fought them once, Zaltor continued. Years ago. A pirate crew picked up Terran mercenaries. We thought they were rabid. They fought with no fear, no concern for retreat. They used our dead as barricades. Their commander died. They promoted the cook. He held the line for 2 days. Is this hearsay? Bellaris asked, voice tinged with amusement. Zaltor stepped forward. I still have the scars. They didn't fight to win. They fought so we would remember. So we'd hesitate the next time. He let the silence settle before returning to his seat. They turned trauma into tradition. Loss into legacy. You underestimate them because they don't fit your model. But you forget we are not invading a culture. We are invading a species that teaches warfare as entertainment. Counselor Vorth, known for her data-driven decisiveness, reviewed a chart on her console. Their population watches thousands of hours of simulated combat yearly. Fictional but violent. Simulations, games, dramatizations. Children absorb tactics as narrative. This is unusual. Not unusual. Intentional, Zaltor corrected. They rehearse war constantly. Mentally. Emotionally. They prepare without knowing it. The chamber stirred uneasily. Enough, Terek snapped. They are still a fractured, ground-bound species. No matter how many historical documentaries they produce, no matter how brutal their past, they are a technological toddler. We are the apex. We do not delay conquest because one soldier had a rough skirmish on a forgotten moon. You mistake silence for agreement, Zaltor said. I don't need your belief. I gave my warning. When this fails, Remember, it wasn't unforeseen. You walked into a blade, eyes open. The council voted moments later. Unanimous. Proceed with Operation Silence. Earth would be subdued within a quarter cycle. Resources harvested. Resistance erased. The same pattern that had broken hundreds of worlds before. Zaltor watched them filter out of the chamber, draped in silks and certainty. None of them looked back. A junior officer approached hesitantly. You really think they'll fight back like that? No, Zaltor replied quietly. I think they'll fight harder. And if they lose, they'll come back. Stronger. Smarter. Crueler. This isn't a campaign. It's the spark that will burn this empire. The officer swallowed hard. Mark my words, Zaltor finished, voice now low as stone, you don't fight humans. You provoke them. And that's a war no one ever wins. The fleet entered Earth's orbit with silence and precision. Massive hulls shadowed the skies, blocking satellite transmissions, jamming frequencies. Initial scans confirmed the expected primitivism: no planetary shields, no space-based weapon platforms. Resistance was predicted to be minimal. Civilian panic was the goal, quick surrender the expectation. 3 hours after orbital insertion, drop pods launched over major population centers: New York, Sao Paulo, Istanbul, Johannesburg. Coordinated, synchronized, overwhelming. Elite Imperial commandos hit the ground armed with shock rifles and neural suppressors. The first units broadcast surrender protocols in every Earth language their linguistics AI could replicate. Loudspeakers blared instructions. No response. Streets remained oddly empty. No military formations. No flags. Just silence. Then came the first blast. A convoy in downtown Chicago vanished under a cascade of homemade explosives triggered by pressure sensors. Not a military strike. A resistance act by civilians. The second wave landed in Seoul. The rooftops greeted them with sniper fire. Ballistics, not energy, yet devastatingly accurate. Comms officers were taken out within minutes. An entire squad vanished inside the Paris catacombs. Another in Lagos found themselves cornered by firebombs launched from apartment windows. They weren't facing soldiers. They were facing neighborhoods, families, veterans, ex-gang members, hunters, hackers. Urban warfare became a nightmare maze. Units tried to retreat to open ground, only to be funneled through narrow streets pre-mapped for kill zones. Local police forces didn't surrender. They went underground, collaborated with whoever had weapons, sometimes even criminals. The Empire's first major defeat came not in battle, but in data. The human internet, decentralized and chaotic, adapted instantly. Anonymous callouts for resistance tactics appeared in minute. Instructions for hijacking drop pods. Weak points in armor. Real-time troop tracking through public posts. No hierarchy. No centralized command. Just a global organism reacting in perfect, unpredictable unity. Simultaneously, human militaries moved without national divisions. Old enemies contacted each other. Intelligence was pooled, tactics shared. The United Nations issued no official response, yet field commanders from rival nations were coordinating operations within hours via encrypted backchannels. Former soldiers reactivated without orders. Insurgents in war-torn regions turned on a shared enemy. Even rogue elements who had once terrorized their own countries joined the defense. It wasn't patriotism. It was species instinct. One Imperial dropship was brought down over rural Ukraine by a surface-to-air missile system dating back to the 1980s. Another was hacked mid-flight and redirected into the Indian Ocean. South American cartels began trafficking captured alien weapons, reverse engineering them for black market trade and turning them on the invaders within days. In North America, local militias coordinated with law enforcement through burner phones and drone relays. In Asia, martial arts academies became combat training centers overnight. They didn't fight conventionally. They didn't follow doctrine. They used terrain, social media, folklore, and fear. They moved in shadows, broadcast in memes, embedded in populations. The Empire couldn't determine who was a combatant and who wasn't. Every death increased recruitment. Every atrocity was filmed and distributed worldwide, and unlike the Empire, humanity weaponized grief. Detroit became a graveyard for an entire battalion. Alien forces attempting a sweep operation were funneled into the city's underground rail network. What they thought was an evacuation route turned into a kill box. Improvised traps, booby-trapped stairwells, explosives made from fertilizer and scrap. None of it standard, all of it effective. By the time backup arrived, nothing remained but charred armor and silence. The withdrawal order came too late. Units had been cut off, transports destroyed. A coordinated solar flare assault disrupted orbital comms, engineered by human hackers coordinating with physicists using hijacked observatories. Ships above Earth lost contact with ground teams. Panic spread. One captured commander's helmet feed leaked to the human web. Footage showed the last seconds of a skirmish in Manila. Surrounded. No exit. A human soldier advanced, armor scorched, breathing heavy. "Go home," he said in perfect Zarnik dialect. Then ended it. From a secure location far from Earth, Zaltor watched the data stream with grim familiarity. Each video, each report, it mirrored what he had seen in the past, only now it was a planet-wide execution of guerrilla genius. He could read between the frames. Humanity wasn't scared. It was angry. And anger, in their hands, became strategy. They didn't win because of numbers. They won because of refusal. They refused occupation, refused despair, refused to play by rules written for lesser creatures. The Empire hadn't landed on a backward planet. It had woken something ancient and resilient, something that saw extinction as an invitation to innovate. The Earth had answered, not with peace treaties or pleas, but with relentless, coordinated, surgical defiance. And the worst part, the truly terrifying part, was that this was only their reaction. Their response would come next. The moment Earth pushed the invaders off its soil, it stopped playing defense. No one declared it. No council convened. Yet the shift was unmistakable. The human response transitioned from resistance to retaliation. Within weeks, aerospace engineers, hackers, and military strategists began a quiet, unified mission: leave Earth's gravity and take the war to the stars. It began with repurposed wreckage. Down drop ships were stripped in underground facilities. Alien metal was studied, cracked, and fused with human alloys. Languages decoded. Propulsion systems reverse-engineered. Experimental craft were cobbled together in hidden hangars, tested in silence, and launched without ceremony. The first human-led orbital breach wasn't witnessed by politicians or generals. It was confirmed by intercepted Imperial telemetry as one of their recon probes was hijacked mid-route and returned bearing a Terran flag. Strikes followed. Small at first. Surgical. A refueling station above the moon vanished in a detonation caused by a stolen gravity core. Then a comms relay in Sector 11A went dark, its entire crew neutralized without a single shot fired. Soon, human operatives were showing up where they had no right to be, on asteroids, in deep space trade hubs, even inside enemy strongholds. Each mission stripped the Empire of certainty. What the Empire failed to grasp was that Earth didn't need parity to win. It needed unpredictability. The same traits that once made humans a mystery on their own planet now made them nightmares in space. They didn't mimic tactics, they rewrote them mid-mission. They didn't replicate enemy weapons, they turned them into trap. Every failed attempt taught them something. Every captured device was improved upon. And most importantly, they were willing to die if it meant gaining one more inch of advantage. Panic crept into the ranks. High Command tried to mask it, but it leaked from comms logs, hastily issued security directives, and reports laced with confusion. Soldiers refused to be stationed near Terran-controlled systems. Merchant fleets diverted around human engagement zones. The phrase, Terran proximity, replaced traditional alert codes on many ships. The tipping point came at Varellus 4. Considered unbreachable due to its terrain and sensor nets, it was chosen as a regrouping station. The Empire fortified it with orbital defenses, anti-personnel fields, and atmospheric blockers. Still, the humans landed. Not with force, but by aligning with the environment. Their entry pods were coated in biological compounds harvested from local flora, rendering them invisible to scanners. When the attack came, it wasn't with thunder. It came with poison darts from trained local beasts, hacked terrain drones that turned on their masters, and weather manipulation that created a week-long smog cover. By the end, the planet fell. Not to firepower, but to adaptation. The news spread. Not from official broadcasts, but through smuggled footage and survivor testimonials. Rumors turned to belief. Rebellion flared. Species once loyal to the Empire began to waver. They saw in humanity something no other race had ever embodied in war: focused chaos backed by moral fury. Defections began quietly. A communications technician sent schematics to a human channel. A freighter captain let Terrans board undetected. Then, entire colonies began severing ties. The Terran network expanded, not through invasion, but invitation. Alien outposts, long oppressed under the Empire's weight, saw in humanity not just a fighter, but a liberator. Captured Imperial officers, debriefed by Terran command, echoed a singular theme: they expected cruelty. Instead, they were given rations, medical care, books in their language, and then calmly asked for knowledge. Not tortured, not broken, persuaded. The stories spread faster than any fleet. Civilians in Imperial space began wearing Earth-made garments. Children spoke of Terrans as legends. And in corridors of power, leadership cracked. Commanders who had once ordered the assault on Earth now hesitated to send troops to contested sectors. Morale plummeted. Logistics failed. Internal mutinies increased. Zaltor, recalled to temporary service, was sent to observe the growing situation. He arrived at a joint command hub, one part human, one part alien defector, on the edge of contested space. What he saw wasn't a military assembly. It was a movement. He watched humans share tactics with Varnak insurgents, offer safe haven to ex-Imperial medics, train young thrill scouts in zero-gravity maneuvers. There were no speeches, no ceremonies. Just relentless coordination born from necessity, not ego. One night, he spoke with a human commander, a former infantry officer from Eastern Europe. The man, barely older than 30, reviewed 7 operations simultaneously, consulted alien advisors, and dismissed status updates with surgical clarity. "What do you want from this war?" Zaltor asked. The answer came without pause. To end it right. Not just win. Change it. Break the cycle. Zaltor saw no ambition in his eyes. Only conviction. That was worse. Ambition could be manipulated. Conviction was immune. He returned to his quarters, sat in silence, and recorded a message to the Imperial Council. No pleasantries. No preamble. Just 4 words. You made your enemy. Humanity's presence in space no longer resembled an experiment. It had become a force that redefined warfare. Once grounded by gravity and limited by fractured nations, they now moved like a single, unbroken spear. What they lacked in centuries of galactic experience, they replaced with audacity and raw speed. Their ships, forged from hybrid technology, didn't look like Imperial craft. Sharp lines were replaced with brutal, functional designs that prioritized adaptability over elegance. Each vessel bore scars from testing, but each was faster, harder to track, and more unpredictable than anything the Empire had ever faced. The first major campaign beyond Earth was not a raid but a declaration. Humanity struck at mining colonies that once fed Imperial industry, severing resource chains with precision. They didn't occupy. They dismantled. They destroyed fuel depots, hijacked cargo freighters, and left encrypted messages warning that this was only the beginning. Every blow was calculated to erode confidence. Every loss forced the Empire to divert fleets from their central command just to protect vital infrastructure. Their tactics grew stranger the farther they spread. Human engineers worked directly with defected alien technicians, merging two technological philosophies that had never before coexisted. Weapons that once relied solely on plasma were combined with kinetic shock systems that could pierce energy shields through sheer force. Gravity bombs, developed in hidden Terran labs, became the most feared weapon in contested sectors. They didn't annihilate targets outright. They folded ships in on themselves, leaving haunting fields of wreckage behind. But technology alone wasn't what shifted the balance. It was the way humans lived in the chaos of war zones. Jungle worlds, desert moons, frozen mining outposts, wherever the Empire saw inhospitable terrain, humans saw cover, opportunity, or home. On Varellus 4, they thrived in dense jungles by using biocamouflage developed overnight from local plant matter. On the asteroid belts of Denril, they mined the rocks for metals while running covert operations under the Empire's sensors, turning the enemy's own map of uninhabitable regions into strategic strongholds. What unsettled the Empire most was that humans weren't just destroying. They were building something new. Alien defectors, once considered expendable by their own government, were treated as allies. Humans shared everything: food, medicine, knowledge, and in return, these species fought alongside them with a loyalty the Empire had never inspired. A Varnak scout described the shift. They do not ask for tribute. They ask for trust. And they give it first, even when they shouldn't. It's disarming. Across occupied systems, whispers of Terran mercy spread faster than any propaganda. Villages spared during raids told stories of soldiers who offered rations before taking control. Injured alien civilians were healed by field medics who had no reason to help, yet did. The Empire's narrative of humanity as barbaric primitives began to collapse. Instead, they became legends, warriors who fought like predators but rebuilt like guardians. The psychological toll on Imperial troops deepened. Soldiers captured in battle reported being treated with a confusing mix of respect and strategic cunning. Humans would interrogate them, yes, but also listen, ask about their homes, offer warm meals. It was impossible to demonize an enemy that showed this balance of ferocity and empathy. Many defected quietly, leaving their units to join the Terran Alliance, smuggling out intelligence and weapon schematic. For the first time in generations, the Empire faced an enemy that didn't seek assimilation or tribute. Humanity fought for survival but also for principle. Every species that joined them became part of something larger, a network of worlds united not by fear, but by defiance. This shift unsettled Imperial leadership more than any weapon could. The stories reached even the deepest corners of Imperial space. An alien soldier wrote to his family, "They are unlike us. They celebrate victory, but they mourn even the smallest loss. They look you in the eye when they fight as if you matter. I think that is why they win." Zaltor saw this transformation firsthand. Once an outsider, he found himself drawn into the Terran orbit, advising their commanders on how the Empire would respond. He realized that humans didn't merely adapt to war, they reshaped everyone around them. Their energy was infectious, their refusal to quit unshakable. It wasn't brute strength or advanced weapons that made them terrifying. It was the unspoken promise that they would not stop until the galaxy changed with them. One night, as the stars burned cold above a forward command post, Zaltor reflected on the irony. The Empire had dismissed his warnings, believing humanity to be an isolated threat. Now, they weren't fighting a single planet, they were fighting an idea. And ideas, once set loose, didn't die. What began as a desperate defense had become a revolution that was no longer human alone. The fall didn't come with a final battle. It came with silence. Systems once pulsing with Imperial order went dark, not from assault, but from abandonment. Fleets fractured. Command channels looped unanswered. Colonies refused to send tribute. Entire sectors no longer recognized the emperor's authority. What centuries of control had built, a single species unraveled through relentless momentum. Humanity stood at the center of it, not as conquerors but as the catalyst. The final campaign was inevitable. The Terran Alliance, now backed by dozens of defected worlds, pushed toward the Imperial core. Resistance had degraded into desperation. Remaining strongholds held not out of duty, but fear. Every retreat gave humanity more reach, more trust, more belief. The Empire's own citizens began to doubt its permanence. The throne world was protected by a ring of defense stations, once considered impenetrable. They fell in less than a week. Gravity distortion missiles disabled shielding, then Allied strike teams boarded in silence. Not one was destroyed outright. Each station was captured intact, rerouted, and turned inward. By the time the throne world's skies were exposed, there were no reinforcements left to call. The Empire had run out of soldiers willing to die for a fading symbol. The Terran fleet entered orbit without resistance. No ultimatum. No show of force. A single transmission was sent to every frequency. * stand down. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to end it. *. On the surface, panic broke into confusion. Civilians prepared for annihilation. None came. When the capital was breached, it wasn't leveled. Terran soldiers moved methodically, disabling infrastructure with precision, not vengeance. High Command's chambers were empty. The Emperor, once believed untouchable, was found alone in a subterranean vault, stripped of advisors, stripped of power. He surrendered without conditions. But it wasn't surrender that changed everything. It was what came after. Humanity rejected occupation. They dismantled the symbols of control, but left the foundations intact. Instead of replacing the Empire with their own structure, they handed governance to local coalitions. Each liberated world was given autonomy, support, and time. Trade routes were reopened. Education systems were restored. Soldiers became advisors. Medics replaced drone patrols. Human diplomats met with species who had been enslaved for generations. Instead of reparations, they offered collaboration. Resources were distributed not to Earth, but to worlds that had been left to rot. Laws were written in dozens of languages. The Terran military enforced only one principle: no return to centralized power. For many, it was unthinkable. Victors had always claimed territory, taken prisoners, rewritten history. But humans didn't follow that script. They didn't claim thrones. They left them empty. Their war hadn't been about conquest. It had been about proving that domination had a limit. Zaltor, now a representative for the newly formed Galactic Reformation Assembly, addressed a council of newly freed systems. The room was filled with faces once bowed by oppression. He spoke not as a soldier, but as a witness. I warned them once, not because I feared your weapons, but because I saw your will. You didn't want power. You wanted to break the cycle. And you did. Not through destruction, but discipline. He paused. No applause. Just understanding. You taught the galaxy something it had forgotten. That strength isn't in control. It's in restraint. He stepped down without waiting for acknowledgement. Throughout the former empire, generations who had never known freedom began shaping their own world. Not all transitions were peaceful. Some resisted the change. But when violence rose again, it was not met with cruelty. Human-led peacekeeping forces focused on dialogue before force. The message was clear. This wasn't a new empire, it was the last war. The Terran fleet remained, not as an occupying armada, but as a deterrent against regression. Their presence was enough. Even planets untouched by battle sent envoys seeking membership in the Alliance. The idea of humanity, of what they represented, spread faster than any doctrine. And so, the galaxy changed. Not through banners raised in conquest, but through silence earned in sacrifice. In the closing months, a message was transmitted across all known channels. Not from Earth's leadership. From a child aboard a diplomatic vessel. Her voice, translated into every language, carried the closing words of a war no one thought could be won. We didn't come to rule. We came because we were told to kneel. And we stood instead. Now it's your turn. Stand. There were no parades. No memorials large enough to hold the names of the fallen. Just a shared, unspoken truth across stars that had once known only fear. Humanity arrived late. But they arrived ready. And they changed everything.